Training can feel overwhelming. There are a billion videos out there on different exercises, ways to train, if strength or speed is more important, what foods you should eat, what supplements you should take, and what you need to do for recovery. I'm going to simplify everything in this video. Let's start with training. What are the big drivers that actually build results and create a strong foundation for future growth? Start with the key athletic movement patterns that every good program includes. Sprinting, squatting, hinging, horizontal and vertical pressing, horizontal and vertical pulling. These movement categories contain your big, bang for your buck exercises that if you're going to train 3 to 4 times a week for an hour, that's all you have time for. Don't forget, a bodybuilder's sport is lifting. That's like their general training and their sport practice. But if you're a soccer player, you can't lift 2 hours a day, 6 days a week. You also need to dedicate time and energy toward conditioning, speed work, and most importantly, your sport practice. You need to focus on the highest quality, highest return of investment movements. So what lifts should you actually do in these movement patterns? Start with the exercises that millions of athletes have used over the last 100 years to improve. Basic sprints and change of direction work, back squats, deadlifts, bench press, overhead press, pull-ups, and dumbbell rows. Of course, you can experiment with a few close variations over time, but before worrying about what the exact optimal squatting variation is for you, just get good at the back squat, master technique, push the intensity, and develop a decent baseline of strength. Aim to do each of these movements twice per week for between 4 and 5 sets and 3 and 8 reps. I would rotate doing sets of 8 until you stop progressing, sets of 5 until you stop progressing, and then sets of 3 until you stop progressing. Then restart with sets of 8 and keep moving forward. With the sprints, do one day of 300 to 400 meters of sprinting, spread over 6 to 12 sets with full recovery. Do a second day of between 200 and 300 meters of change of direction sprints. So one day would be something like 6 times 60 meters, and the other day would be 6 times 40 meter shuttle runs. You will be amazed at how much progress that you can make if you just stick with these lifts and sprints twice a week with good technique and intensity for a full year. This isn't the only thing that you ever need to do for the rest of your athletic career, but if you haven't done this yet, you're pretty much wasting your time. This is going to build you a great foundation of movement capacity, strength, muscle, and speed while teaching you consistency and effort. If you're a coach and you can get high school kids to basically just do this from 9th grade through senior year, you're gonna have one of the strongest and fastest teams around with very little complexity and no 2-hour lifting sessions. And with this intense training, you're gonna need to fuel properly. Follow these 5 simple nutrition rules and you'll have better nutrition than 95% of athletes. 85% or more of your food should come from single ingredient whole foods. These are just foods that come from the earth, and it doesn't make sense to ask what's in them. Meat, eggs, fruit, vegetables, nuts, beans, and whole grains. There shouldn't be a long list of ingredients or chemicals on the packaging. I recommend athletes eat between 4 and 6 times per day. Snacks can count too, as long as it meets the protein requirement. There isn't a magic number of times per day to eat. It's going to depend on your schedule and require some experimentation based on how you handle food around training. Some people can eat a big meal fairly close to training and it doesn't really bother them, while others need a much smaller meal or to eat further away. And that's going to impact how many times per day you can eat. Aim to eat 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight per day, spread pretty evenly across your meals. Endurance athletes can go a little lower, like 0.75 grams, and eat more carbs. Don't stress too much about things being perfectly even either. Just don't have one meal with 10 grams of protein and another with 80. Eat about 20% of your calories from fat and then the rest of your calories from carbs. Good sources would be quality meats, eggs, and fish for fats, and fruits, vegetables, and whole grains to get in your carbs. Drink mostly water and consistently enough throughout the day so your urine stays a light yellow. Drink more and add some salt if sweating a lot from intense or long training sessions. Salting your food extra might also be needed if you're in a really hot and sweaty environment. Here's an example of how I eat. Now, the only thing you can actually do to really improve this nutrition is experiment with which exact foods you like to eat and if you like less big meals per day or more smaller meals. What I gave you is the core of good nutrition. There, of course, are going to be small things on the fringe that are going to maybe work better for you versus somebody else, but you've got to experiment with that on your own, and it's not going to deviate too far from these core principles. The last thing to do is actually utilize this food to repair and heal your body. Recovery is probably the simplest part. Aim to sleep between 8 and 9 hours every night, with a pretty consistent sleep and wake time. And try to get at least 1 other hour of relaxation in during the day, just to help you unwind. And in general, keep your stress as low as you can. A few other really good modalities that will help you, but only if the main stuff is taken care of, are things like massage, hot tub and sauna, or ice baths. Just remember, these things are extra. They might account for something like 5% of recovery, where sleep, relaxation, and good nutrition make up almost all the benefit. So definitely use them. Just make sure you aren't majoring in the minors. If you are overwhelmed by all the options, simplify your training to these few things. Be consistent with it and work hard. Do that for the next year and watch your physical capacity explode. Then, maybe you can start experimenting with going beyond these parameters.